It started with a harmless scroll through my feed. I wasn't looking for anything in particular, just passing time, seeing what friends were up to, maybe catching a glimpse of her smiling face. I liked seeing her happy, seeing her out with friends, enjoying life. She told me she was going to the concert with a couple of co-workers. She even texted me a few photos early in the night, one of the stage, another of her holding a drink, her eyes bright and excited. I smiled when I saw them. I liked knowing she was having a good time. But when I checked again later, there was a new post. It was from her account, an Instagram story. A short clip of the band, the crowd cheering, the lights flashing. She tagged a few people, and at first glance, it looked like any other story from a night out. But then I noticed it. Not right away, but as I watched it again, I saw it clear as day. Her co-worker's arm wasn't just draped casually over her shoulder. It was lower, snug around her waist. She hadn't mentioned that in the texts. I played it again, thinking maybe it was just the angle, maybe it didn't mean anything. But the way he leaned in, the way she smiled, it felt off. It felt wrong. I told myself not to jump to conclusions. A single moment captured in a video didn't mean anything on its own. People get close at concerts, and maybe I was seeing something that wasn't really there. But it gnawed at me. I closed the app, tossed my phone on the couch, and tried to ignore the uneasy feeling settling in my stomach. She hadn't done anything wrong, not that I knew of. I had no reason not to trust her. And yet, the image wouldn't leave my mind. Later that night, after the concert ended and the noise in the venue died down, she called me. Her voice was light, her energy high. "Hey. It was amazing. The band sounded even better live. I wish you could have been there." "I'm glad you had a good time," I said, trying to sound upbeat. "Who all was there again?" She listed the same names she told me earlier. Nothing new, nothing suspicious. But she didn't mention the co-worker whose arm I'd noticed in the story. Maybe she didn't think it was worth mentioning. Maybe she didn't see it the way I did. Or maybe she didn't want to bring it up. "How was everyone?" I asked casually. "Did you all stick together, or did people wander off?" She hesitated for just a moment, so brief I almost missed it. "We mostly stayed together. You know how it is. Crowds get crazy, so we made sure not to lose each other." That uneasy feeling grew stronger. I tried to keep the conversation light, not letting on that I'd seen the video. But after we hung up, I found myself going back to it again, replaying it, analyzing every detail. I started noticing things I hadn't before. The way his hand lingered just a bit too long, the way she tilted her head toward him for a split second before turning back to the stage. These were small things, tiny, insignificant details, maybe, but they didn't sit right. I knew I could ask her about it. I could tell her what I saw and see what she said. But part of me hesitated. What if I was overreacting? What if it was all innocent, and I ended up sounding paranoid? Or worse, what if I wasn't imagining it? What if she hesitated again, stumbled over her words, and confirmed the very thing I was afraid of? I set my phone down again, trying to push it out of my mind. I turned on the TV, flipped through channels aimlessly, hoping to distract myself. But the thought lingered. It followed me as I got ready for bed, as I lay in the dark staring at the ceiling. I tried to tell myself it was nothing, just a fleeting moment in a crowded room. But it didn't feel like nothing. It felt like the beginning of something I couldn't ignore. I spent the next morning convincing myself that I had imagined it. People throw their arms around friends all the time, especially at concerts. Maybe they were trying not to lose each other in the crowd. Maybe it was just a split-second thing that didn't mean anything. I told myself these things on repeat, each time hoping it would be enough to bury the gnawing feeling. But the harder I tried, the more it dug in, like a splinter I couldn't pull out. She texted me a little afternoon, "I'm so tired today, but it was worth it. Thanks for being so chill about me going without you." I stared at the message for a long time, the words floating on the screen. She seemed so carefree, so normal. The tone didn't match the doubts swirling in my mind, and for a brief moment, I thought maybe I really was overthinking it. Maybe this was a me problem, not a her problem. "No worries," I replied after a while. "Glad you had fun." The message felt hollow, like I was pretending to be fine when I wasn't. But what was I supposed to say? "Hey, about that guy's arm around your waist," it felt petty, and I didn't want to come across as insecure or controlling. Still, I couldn't shake the image from my mind. That afternoon, I went back through her stories. Most of them were the typical shots you'd expect, clips of the band on stage, the crowd waving their hands in the air, her drink in her hand. But then there was that one video again. The one where she was smiling, the lights flashing overhead, and his arm, clearly his, resting against her waist. I watched it over and over, searching for something to explain it away. But no matter how many times I hit replay, I couldn't unsee it. I decided I needed a second opinion. I called up my best friend, someone who'd known me, and her, for years. I tried to keep it casual, not wanting to sound like I was blowing things out of proportion. "Hey," I started, "can I ask you something without you thinking I'm crazy?" "Oh," he said, already skeptical. "What's going on?" "It's nothing big," I said quickly. "Just something I saw on Instagram last night." "Okay, go on." I hesitated. Saying it out loud made it feel real in a way that watching the video didn't. But I pushed forward. She posted a story from the concert. It looked like one of her co-workers had his arm around her waist. Like, not just in a friendly way, you know? There was a pause on the other end. "Are you sure?" he asked. "No, I'm not sure," I admitted. "It could be nothing. It doesn't sit right." "Well, what did she say about it?" "I haven't brought it up yet," I said. "I don't want to seem paranoid." He sighed. "Look, man, I get why you're second-guessing it. But you've got to talk to her. Sitting on it is just going to mess with your head." I knew he was right. The longer I kept quiet, the more I was driving myself crazy. But I also knew that once I asked, I couldn't take it back. If it was innocent, she might be hurt that I doubted her. If it wasn't innocent, well, I wasn't ready to think about that. Later that evening, she called me again. She sounded tired, but still upbeat. "Hey, how's your day been?" "Pretty good," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "How about you?" Just trying to recover from last night. Work was rough today." She laughed softly. "But worth it." I hesitated, my heart pounding. I could feel the words rising in my throat, threatening to spill out. But then I chickened out. "That's good," I said instead. "Glad it was a good night." "Yeah," she said. "We should go together next time. It'd be way more fun with you there." I wanted to say sure, next time I'll be there to make sure no one else has their arm around your waist. But I didn't. I bit my tongue, nodding along as she talked about the next concert they were planning. I felt like a coward, unable to ask the one question that had been eating at me since I saw that post. After we hung up, I stared at my phone, the screen going dark after a few minutes. The image of her and that co-worker was burned into my mind, growing larger every time I thought about it. I needed to know the truth. I needed to stop pretending that this was nothing. But I still didn't know how to confront her without breaking what we had. Another week passed, and with each day, the weight in my chest grew heavier. She carried on as though nothing had happened, and I followed her lead, pretending to be fine. But it wasn't fine. I wasn't fine. Every time she smiled at me, every time she kissed my cheek or sent me a playful text, it felt like a crack in the facade I was struggling to hold together. She mentioned her co-workers in passing, always the same names, never his. If I hadn't seen that video, I might have thought nothing of it. I might have believed her when she said she had a tight-knit group at work, that they all got along and looked out for each other. But now, every mention of a friend from work set my teeth on edge. Every vague reference to plans, every laugh that seemed just a little too forced, made me question what was real and what was just a front. One evening, we were sitting on the couch, watching some forgettable Netflix series. She leaned against me, her head on my shoulder, her fingers idly scrolling through her phone. I stared at the screen, not paying attention to the show, my thoughts spiraling. I wanted to ask her about the video, about the coworker, about what exactly had happened at that concert. The words were right there, sitting on the tip of my tongue. But every time I opened my mouth, I froze. What if I was wrong? What if I was overthinking it? What if bringing it up made everything worse? "Something on your mind?" she asked suddenly, her voice soft. Her eyes flicked up to meet mine, and for a moment, I thought she could see right through me. "No," I said quickly. Too quickly. "Just tired, I guess." Her brow furrowed slightly, but she didn't press. "You've seemed a little off lately," she said, returning her gaze to her phone. "Work stress?" I nodded. "Yeah, probably that." The lie tasted bitter, but I couldn't bring myself to tell the truth. Instead, I let the moment pass, the silence between us growing heavier. She didn't ask again, and I didn't offer anything more. We sat there in the dim light of the television, two people pretending everything was normal. Later that night, after she went to bed, I stayed up, scrolling through my own phone, looking at old photos of us. The smiles, the trips, the moments that once felt so genuine. I tried to remind myself of who we were before all this doubt crept in. But no matter how many happy memories I scrolled past, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed. I couldn't unsee what I had seen, couldn't forget the way her coworker's arm had looked so casual, so natural around her waist. I thought about my friend's advice. I knew I needed to talk to her, to bring it out into the open. But every time I imagined the conversation, my chest tightened. What if she got defensive? What if she denied it outright? Or worse, what if she admitted there was more to it than she'd let on? I wasn't ready for that answer. I wasn't ready to face the possibility that the person I trusted most had let someone else into the space that was supposed to be ours. Instead of sleeping, I started going through her Instagram again. The concert story was long gone by then, but I remembered every detail. The flash of the stage lights, her bright smile, the coworker's arm. I couldn't find any other posts that raised red flags, but that one image was enough. It replayed in my mind every time I closed my eyes, an unwelcome intruder in my thoughts. I thought about confronting her again. Maybe it would be better if I just ripped the bandage off, got it over with. But I still hesitated. I needed more, I told myself. More proof, more context, more clarity. Something that would give me the confidence to ask her the hard questions. Until then, I would keep playing the part. I would keep pretending that nothing was wrong, even as it ate away at me from the inside. It wasn't sustainable, pretending like everything was fine when every moment alone was a fresh round of overthinking. As the days stretched on, I found myself walking a tightrope between acting normal and internally unraveling. She seemed oblivious, carrying on like always, but I couldn't tell if that was because she truly didn't sense my unease or because she was pretending just as much as I was. Either way, I knew I couldn't keep up the charade much longer. One night, we went out to dinner at a small Italian place we'd always liked. The meal was pleasant enough on the surface. Candlelight, soft music, her laugh over a glass of wine. But underneath, I was spiraling. Every time she smiled at me, I wondered if she smiled like that at him. Every time her phone buzzed in her bag, I fought the urge to ask who it was. I kept trying to pull myself back, to stay present, but the doubts were relentless. "Are you okay?" she asked at one point, looking at me across the table. "You've been kind of quiet." "I'm fine," I said automatically, the lie feeling heavier each time I told it. She tilted her head, studying me for a moment before letting it drop. We moved on to lighter topics, work, weekend plans, a friend's upcoming birthday party, but the tension inside me kept building. By the time we paid the check and walked out into the cool night air, my nerves were shot. I couldn't keep doing this. I couldn't keep holding it in. Something had to give. At home, we settled on the couch, her tucked under a blanket, scrolling through Netflix. I tried to relax, to let the normalcy of the moment wash over me, but my chest felt tight, like I was trying to hold my breath indefinitely. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. "I need to ask you something," I said, my voice cutting through the quiet. She looked up at me, her eyes widening slightly. "What's up?" I hesitated, my heart pounding. Once I said it, I couldn't take it back. But I had to know. "That video you posted from the concert. There was a guy with his arm around you. Who was that?" Her expression shifted, just a flicker of surprise, quickly masked. "Oh, that," she said lightly. "That was just Matt from work. He was helping me get through the crowd. It wasn't a big deal." I wanted to believe her. I wanted to take her explanation at face value, let it be the simple, innocent thing she was making it out to be. But that gnawing feeling wouldn't let me. "It looked like more than that," I said carefully. "It didn't just look like someone helping you through the crowd." She frowned, the playfulness gone now. "What do you mean?" "I mean," I faltered, trying to find the right words. "I mean it looked like he was really comfortable with you. Like it wasn't just a coworker thing." Her eyes narrowed slightly, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of something defensive. "He's a friend," she said. "That's all. We're close at work, but it's not like that." "I don't know why you're reading into it." "Because you never mentioned him before," I said, my voice rising slightly. "If he's just a friend, why have you never brought him up? Why didn't you tell me he was there that night?" She sighed, rubbing her temples. "I didn't think it was a big deal," she said. "I didn't think you'd care. It's not like anything happened." "But you didn't tell me," I pressed. "And it wasn't just a random coworker standing next to you. He had his arm around you. That's not nothing." She shook her head, her tone shifting to frustration. "I can't believe you're making this into a thing," she said. "Matt is just a coworker. He was helping me get through a packed concert. That's it. If you don't trust me, just say so. Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. The accusation, that I didn't trust her, felt both true and unfair. I wanted to trust her, but what I'd seen, what I'd felt, was making it impossible. I'm just trying to understand, I said quietly. You can't blame me for having questions. She threw off the blanket, standing up. I don't know what you want me to say, she said, pacing the room. I can't change what happened. I can only tell you the truth, and if that's not enough for you, I don't know what else to do. I stared at her, my emotions a storm of anger, sadness, and confusion. I didn't know what I wanted anymore, an admission? A deeper explanation? Or just for this whole thing to go away? But it was too late for that. The cracks were already there, spreading wider with every passing moment. I just need some time, I said finally, my voice weary. I need to think. She stopped pacing, her shoulders slumping. Okay, she said softly. Take the time you need. But I hope you realize that I've been honest with you. I hope you can see that. I didn't answer. Instead, I got up and went to the bedroom, leaving her standing alone in the living room. I closed the door behind me, leaning against it, my head resting against the wood. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe that it was nothing, that Matt was just a coworker helping her through the crowd. But the doubt was still there, and I didn't know if it would ever go away. The next morning, the tension was still there, hanging heavy in the air. She had slept on the couch, I had stayed in the bedroom. When I woke, the house was silent, except for the faint creak of floorboards as she moved around in the kitchen. I stayed where I was for a while, staring at the ceiling, feeling the weight of everything pressing down on me. What was I supposed to do? I couldn't keep walking this line, half believing her, half questioning every word. I had spent so much time replaying the same moment, trying to read into every detail, that I felt like I was losing my grip on reality. At some point, I had to make a choice, believe her and move forward, or dig deeper and risk unraveling everything. I finally got up, dressed, and walked out to the kitchen. She was standing at the counter, her back to me, stirring a mug of tea. When she turned and saw me, she looked uncertain, like she wasn't sure if I was ready to talk. I sat down at the table, rubbing my hands together, trying to find the right words. I've been thinking, I started. And I need to ask you something else. I need you to be completely honest with me. She nodded, her expression serious. Okay, she said. Ask me. That night at the concert, I said slowly, you said Matt was just a friend from work. You said he was helping you get through the crowd. But was there ever more? Did you ever feel something for him? Even if nothing happened physically, I need to know if there was anything else. Her eyes widened slightly, and for a moment, she looked like she might deny it outright. But then she sighed, setting her tea down on the counter. I didn't feel anything for him, she said firmly. Not in the way you're thinking. I liked him as a friend, someone I could talk to about work, but that's it. I never had feelings for him, and I never wanted anything more. I watched her closely, looking for any sign that she was holding something back. Her face was open, her tone steady, and I didn't see any hesitation. For the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker of relief. Maybe I had been overthinking it. Maybe I had let my own insecurities twist something innocent into something it wasn't. Why didn't you tell me about him before? I asked. Why not mention that you had a close friend at work? She shifted uncomfortably. I guess I didn't think it was worth mentioning, she said. I didn't see it as a big deal, so I didn't bring it up. And after the concert, when I saw how you reacted, I realized maybe I should have said something earlier. I nodded, still not entirely satisfied but feeling like I was getting closer to the truth. So you don't have feelings for him, and you've never crossed any lines. Is that right? That's right, she said firmly. I leaned back in my chair, exhaling slowly. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to put this whole thing behind us and move forward. But trust isn't something you can snap back into place overnight. It takes time, and I knew that. I also knew that I couldn't keep holding on to this suspicion if I wanted our relationship to survive. Okay, I said finally. I'll take you at your word. But we need to be honest with each other from now on. No more keeping things to yourself, even if you think it's not a big deal. I need to know I can trust you. She nodded quickly, her eyes glistening. I understand. I promise I'll be more open. I don't want to lose what we have. I stood up, crossing the room to stand in front of her. Neither do I said softly. But it's going to take time. She nodded again, reaching out to take my hand. I'm willing to put in the effort, she said. Whatever it takes. For the first time in a long time, I felt like we were on the same page. The doubts were still there, lingering in the background, but they didn't feel as overwhelming. We had a long way to go, but at least now we were trying. And maybe, just maybe, we could find our way back to each other.